Hello, this is Molly Reamer with 30 Days of Goddess and Bridget's Grove with our September practice update video for 30 Days of Goddess. I just want to remind you at the very beginning that you can still enjoy, participate, draw inspiration from, be nourished by, and listen to this video regardless of whether you maintain a daily practice along with 30 Days of Goddess or not. These videos are intended as a monthly resource with support, nourishment, education, and inspiration and information for you. So feel free to take this with you into the month, regardless of the other practices that you choose to enjoy or not. 30 Days of Goddess is set up to help you make a space for the sacred and for yourself in your very own life. It is not intended to tell you what to do or to feel like a laundry list or prescription or rules to follow. So before we begin September's video, our theme for this month is ground. I also thought of using root or deepen or essentials or simplify, but I settled on ground. So letting yourself settle into the ground of your being right now, inviting yourself back home to connect, to reflect, to listen, and to feel. So letting yourself settle into your body, taking a nice deep breath, and welcoming yourself in just as you are right now. No need to be any more special or more magical than you already are. No need to be any less special or less magical than you already are. And allowing yourself a pause to notice what surrounds you in your own landscape right now. What is around you? What is in the north? What is in the east? What is in the south? What is in the west? What is present in the magic of your own current place? Noticing is powerful magic. One of the things I wanted to make sure to share with you right at the beginning is the idea that I hope we all carry with us throughout this month, which is that to have a grounding signal for yourself this month. What is a signal to you that helps you feel grounded, that helps you feel stable, that helps you feel whole, that helps you feel connected? And I was inspired to include this idea with our ground theme based on Effie Wild's a video from Effie Wild in which she was referencing T-thorn coil with regard to having a presence trigger. Like, what's a trigger in your life that helps you be present? But I was thinking of it as a grounding signal, a grounding reminder, a grounding touchstone, a grounding trigger, if you will. And so this is something I've done personally without the phrasing of presence trigger, but I've used a touchstone in my own life for a long time. For me, it's usually jewelry. I have the rings, I have the bracelets, and I have pendants, and for me that's a grounding touchstone. But also it is the practice that I have shared often, which is just to lay my hands against my heart. One hand can work, both hands is better, but laying my hands against my heart for me is a grounding touchstone. It's a presence trigger. It's a way to come back home. So very, very, very simple. And so then I have fancier ones, and I have more elaborate practices, and I have so many prayers and so many things to offer. But that very basic way to come back to ground, to come back into presence, is to put my hand against my heart. And so I would love to encourage you to come up with something like that for yourself, or if you already have something that feels like a presence trigger or a grounding touchstone, to share that with us either as a comment or post in the Facebook group, etc. But for me, this is how I come back home. This is how if I feel scattered, if I feel off center, if I feel distracted, if I feel a sense of longing, if I feel not present, then the hand against my heart will bring me back. It should be very simple. It should be very small, and it should involve something physical, something tactile, something you can touch, hold, etc. For me, the prayer book itself becomes a touchstone. It carries all that magic and power of all the days that have gone before. And I feel like it can also help you ground. Just putting your hand on it, we speak of it as a portable tiny temple, portable altar space, and even just laying your hand against it can help you to ground. So ground has a lot of ways. We can think of ground in a lot of ways. We can think of grounding our energy. We can think of our own ground of being, like where are we coming from? What's our center of being? What's our ground of being? And we can look at ground as the sacred ground beneath our feet. We can also look at ground as the landscape that surrounds us. What is the actual ground where we actually are? So it can be a metaphorical concept, it can be an energetic sensation, and it can also be a physical experience of the physical actual ground, the literal ground. So it can be figurative, it can be literal, it can be metaphorical, it can be experiential. We can be thinking about the, love as the ground of being, the goddess as the ground of creation, the ground of being. We can think of the actual sacred ground beneath our feet. We can think of the landscape that surrounds us, and we can think about our own centers, the ground of our being. And so lots of things to think about with ground. The other thing that I wanted to remind you of this month is I realized after I did the Claiming Your Magic online retreat, and when I speak about devotion, I speak about being in devotion to your own life and the concept of this is your life, so you might as well love it. I mean, this is where you are. And it came to my attention that a few people had misunderstood or misinterpreted what I was saying in that I was saying that you have to, you're not allowed to change anything. You have to love what your life is like right now. And also perhaps misunderstanding what I meant by devotion, what I meant by being in devotion to your own life. And so I wrote a poem about that. And rather than, a lot of times I read the poem that's from the front of the prayer book for the month. This time I'm going to go ahead and read the poem that I wrote in response to that. What I felt like was kind of a misunderstanding of what I meant about being in devotion to your own life. And so I want to share that. Also reminding you that the prayers that I write and the questions that I pose and the videos that I create and the books that I share and write too, is that very often, I write to remind myself of these things too. I don't write the prayers I write and share the poems I share because I have it all figured out and everything is wonderful for me, or because I always believe everything and experience this as my reality at all times. I write to remember, I write to reaffirm, I write to commit, and I write to recommit, and I write to remind myself of what is possible when I listen to myself. So a lot of what I write and the prayers and the poems and the practices I offer are reminders and reaffirmations to myself of the world I wish to live in. It's not that I'm saying this is always true for me at all times and I've got it all figured out and I'm perfect and you need to be like me. That is not at all what I'm saying. They're invitations. They're invitations for you and for me. I am not telling you what to do or how to feel. I am inviting you and myself to remember, to consider, or to ask, what if these things could be true for you? And then I'm inviting you to consider, what if they are already true? What would happen if you believed that love was the ground of your being? What might you choose next? If you considered that you are in devotion to your own life, what would your next step be? If you opened the doorway to consider, this is my life, so I might as well love it, what would happen then? What would be next? So we're invited to consider the possibilities, not to feel like we're stepping into a type of perfectionism or a type of have to. So here is the poem. And I invite you to settle in to your body and to the ground of your being and let these words move through you. And the questions that they offer, let yourself consider them, whether or not you agree with me. Being in devotion to your own life does not mean it is perfect, that you never struggle, that you never have fear or regret. It does not mean you love everything all the time, or that you are required to be bright and positive even in the face of despair and struggle. Being in devotion to your own life means showing up for it all, being present for yourself, where and how you are. It means returning to the center of your own life and living from there. It means being here and being aware, looking at your own life with clarity, with honor, with patience, and with respect. It means listening to yourself. It means looking at your own power of choice and changing what you can, bringing your outer life into alignment with your inner life as often as possible. It means listening to yourself, to recognizing longing as learning and body sensations as teachers and guides. It means allowing yourself to consider wild what ifs and brave prayers. It means opening yourself to the possibility, the invitation, the idea that you are allowed to flourish, that you can create a life you love, that you can orient your life by joy. It means you can drop into yourself and meet your own power and your own magic. It means you will discover an invitation laid before you to live in that power and that magic now. This does not erase challenge. This does not bestow perfection. It means you notice. It means you care. It means you choose where you can, that you act with integrity and with intention. You keep your own promises. You return again and again. You commit and recommit to being here, to being present for, with, and in your own life as it is. Becoming can be a long and painful process. However you feel, wherever you are, remember you are already whole. You are already powerful. You are already strong. The spark of the infinite glows inside you. The pulse of the sacred is in your veins. The breath of the holy is in your chest. There is temple ground beneath your feet. Here you are in the center of your own life with what you have and where you are. This is living with and from devotion. You are already doing it right now. And so those questions of longing, those sparks of desire, those things that say, I wish it could be different, what if? Those are your invitations. Those are your invitations to choose. And if you don't choose differently, they're your invitations to notice. They're not admonishments or critiques. They're invitations to consider. And so thinking about grounding, thinking about our questions for the month. Some of these are connected to last September's video, which I will link to below this one. I'm gonna get a drink of water real quick, sorry about that. Okay. So the questions to consider this month is, do you know what it feels like to be present in your own life? Do you know that feeling? And again, this is not like a directive, like not a critique. If you don't know how to feel present, like you fail at 30 Days of Goddess. That's not what this is about at all. This is an invitation to consider. Do you know what it feels like to be present in your own life? Do you know what it feels like to be centered, to be aware, to be connected? Do you know that feeling in your body? Do you feel that feeling in your body? Can you invite yourself to come back home to it? If it's a distant memory, can you reconstruct that feeling? So where or how do you know it? Do you feel it in your body somewhere? For me, when I feel centered, I feel like I'm in here. I'm in my body. When I feel disconnected from center, when I feel not present, I feel like I'm out there somewhere, kind of rolling around somewhere. When I feel centered, when I feel present, when I feel aware, I feel like I'm in here. I'm in here. And I'm looking out at the world. I'm noticing what is there. And when I feel disconnected, when I feel distracted, when I feel off center, when I feel off course, when I feel like I'm not here, I feel out there. I feel out there instead of in here. So for me, there's a body sensation. For you, there might be a body sensation as well. What is your grounding touchstone or your presence trigger? How do you come back home? How do you make more margin for magic? In my book, Walking with Persephone, I asked the question of how might I expand my sensation of enchanted and magical living out from the slender margins and into the fullness of my hours and how I live? Can I wholeheartedly embody and embrace my spiritual life as primary? Can I consciously, intentionally, and mindfully weave my life out of sticks and stones and moss and words? So what are your essentials? What helps you live your magic? What are your roots? What can you simplify? What is at the ground of your being? What is at the ground of your being? What is your landscape teaching you right now? How can you see the goddess alive and magic afoot in your own world and in your own life? And then I had another poem that I wrote that is pretty long, and I'm just going to share it with you now. And this is just kind of a personal story poem. What I long for most often is to be able to carry the peace and presence, the centeredness and serenity that I feel every morning alone in daily practice with me into the rest of the day. I long to be present with grace and compassion, peace and purpose. I long to feel centered and secure, unflappable and connected. I long to hold clear awareness and present moment experiencing as I move through my tasks and conversations. I crave the stillness and clarity, the sharp and certain sensation of being enveloped by the sacred. My feet on holy ground, my heart open, my mind clear, my life connected to the broad and beautiful whole. Instead, I become frazzled and distracted, frenzied and fragmented, agitated and lost in future looking and past remembering, and the never-ending to-dos that form the soundtrack of my days. I want to be who I am, alone on the porch with my prayer book and my pen, sun on my shoulders, bare feet on the ground, bathed by birdsong, and centered in wholeness all day long. I meet my best self in daily practice, and I want to inhabit her ways throughout the day. For now, I celebrate the complexity of being human, the reality of a relational life. I reject the perfectionism I sense lurking beneath the surface of these longings, the dream visions of what I can be instead of the fullness and muchness of me. We are not meant to be smooth and unchanging, perfect and peaceful, unflappable and stagnant in our sameness. We are meant to be complex and wild, to weave a tapestry of living from all our many threads, to be full color humans. This is presence. This is peace. This is wholeness. Bring your attention to where you are. Commit to that. This is the practice of center. The life practice is to return. So the phrase, the life practice is to return, is from Patricia Lynn Riley. And that is presence, is bringing your attention to where you are and committing to that. That is being in devotion to your own life. It is noticing. Maybe you notice the longing. I wish it was different. Maybe you notice the longing. I wish I had a different job. I wish I was doing something different. I wish I wasn't here. I wish I wasn't with these people. I wish I wasn't doing whatever. That is the invitation. The longing is the invitation. The noticing is the magic. That is being in devotion to your own life. Even if what you notice is you are unhappy or disappointed or stressed or don't want to be doing something. The act of noticing is the act of being in devotion to your own life. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you have to be different. The devotion is in the noticing to where you are. And noticing where you are can include, I'm feeling distracted, I'm feeling jumpy, I'm feeling fragmented, I'm feeling unhappy, I'm feeling discouraged. All those things can be, you can feel all of those things, and you are still in devotion to your own life as you notice those things. And often noticing those things and the longing for them to be different, that's your invitation to choose differently. That's your invitation to cross the threshold into something else. That's your invitation to change. If you can't change in that moment, you're still in devotion to your own life. You're still noticing. And so that is, so then I had some quotes. That's really what I wanted to get to, is that like ground, that ground, that coming back to our own lives, that coming back to our own wholeness, coming back to our own centers, the returning home again and again and again, the life practice being to return. There's invitations all day and all ways to return. And so I had a couple quotes that I wanted to share. So from Virginia Woolf, shared in Jessica Starr's newsletter. I like this one because of the cauldron imagery. Let us simmer over the incalculable cauldron, our enthralling confusion, our hotchpotch of impulses, our perpetual miracle. And then from Shameli Gad of awakeningwomen.com, Before religion, the patriarchy, and self-improvement, before there were complex maps and scriptures, fancy churches, and elaborate ideas of purity, was the living goddess, revered and honored as the source of all things. We don't have to study archaeology nor cling to dreams of the good old days to find her original temples. They are everywhere: an oak tree, a fallen leaf, a crossroad, a hole in the ground, a spring, a pregnant belly, scent of skin, puppy earlobes, calloused hands and feet, mycelium, healing herbs, grateful hearts, the moon, the rain, and dust. Her spirituality is not a linear path toward a goal, nor is it a system of dusty dogmas you have to obey, compare yourself with, or even believe in. It is more like a love affair, of a remembering of what you came here to live and give, a reclamation of an intimacy with she who breathes you. So this month in September, remember who breathes you and allow yourself to ground into that. I also wanted to share a poem that I'd written about goddess-centered practice, which is this. In goddess-centered practice, we discover a faith that is alive and changing, earthy and embodied. We discover there is no need to clear our selves out of the picture, to subdue the personality or transcend the body. We are not asked for emptiness or for non-attachment. We are asked to step right into the beating heart of the sacred, to be full of magic, wonder, delight, and joy. We are invited to inhabit the fullness, muchness, richness, and wholeness of our lives, to be here for it all. And then I wanted to go ahead and close this month's thoughts about grounding and being in devotion to our own lives with this other poem story. And it is pretty long as well, because I write a variety of different things, some prayers, some poems, some kind of stories that are in poem form. So here we go. This is about being undone. Sometimes I feel like my whole life is a great pile of the undone. Everywhere I look is unfinished and waiting. Sometimes everything I look at seems like an accusation, a project, plan, idea, or person left untended. Sometimes I feel like I am not big enough for my own life. I grow frustrated with myself, my promises to change, to be different, to do it better. I remember part of my own vows of faithfulness. I will not override my own knowing. I will not abandon my own wholeness. On a sticky summer day, I circle and sing with my friends. We swap stories of kids in college, parenting woes, daughter concerns, health conditions. Is it really us that is the problem, I say? Or is life itself the problem? There may be nothing wrong with us. It just really is sometimes too much. This morning, I sit with the mulberry trees, the sounds of crickets and chickadees. The air is cool and still and leaves a panoply of small umbrellas glowing with light. First, I think about my promises, about truly living them into being. I think about habits of behavior and patterns of thought that do me harm and that I vow to change over and over again. Then I think with surprise, maybe I am not the problem and life itself is not the problem. Maybe life is just life and I am just me, and the mulberry trees are full of light and I am full of ideas. One of my deepest promises, my most sacred vows, is to be here for it all, not only for the sublime and perfect, the moments that unfold just as they should, but for the depth and complexity and richness of being a full color human with 2 hands, 1 brain, and infinity at her fingertips. What is the deepest heart of my own desire for my own life? What happens if I grant myself grace? What happens if I keep my promises while also What happens if I keep my promises while also stopping trying to fix myself or trying to be better? What happens if I simplify? What happens if I root deep and listen? What happens if I step back into the essentials, let life pare me down to the core where I remember what really matters? What parts of my promises must I keep in order to survive with my soul intact? And what is perfectionism in disguise? I come back home again and again. I reconnect again and again. I breathe deep again and again. I begin again and again. I remember and forget and remember. I return to my own knowing. I scoop myself back together with trust. My life and life itself are companions on a journey, not an enemy to vanquish or a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived, a story to tell, a poem to write, a sacred text to explore. I think back over my great pile of the undone and remember this is only a story I tell too. I myself am wildly and wantonly undone. Such is life, the deep, surprising, beautiful network of the unfinished and unfinishable. The practice of center is not a stick to beat yourself with. It is an invitation to connect, to come back home, to return again and again. There is no such thing as permanently arriving, only returning, greeting yourself at the door of your own heart again and again with surprise and delight. I'm so happy you've returned. I'm so happy you're back. I'm so happy you've come home. I'm so happy you are here. So thanks so much for being here this month. Everything you need to support you in daily practice is available at 30daysofgoddess.com, including the snapshot cards with our ground theme for September. So make sure to go to 30daysofgoddess.com for that. And if you want a fully fledged devotional community, you can check out the Goddess Magic community on Patreon, which is patreon.com/goddessmagic. Thank you so much for being here, and may you ground deeply into the rich, surprising, and undone magic of your own being. Bye-bye.